T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back.
I made a mistake and I forgot to ask Candace for lotion.
You ashy?
So, super ashy. Like ashy Larry ashy right now. Like pretty bad.
Oh, I can get you some. I'll get you some.
Yay. Alright, forget what I said then. I will be lubricated. Maybe next episode, we'll see.
Okay, I've definitely got some for you.
Yes, see, this is the power of teamwork. You can get rid of.
Do you want it now before we finish? Do you want a break so you can? You like to talk with your hands. Let's take a lotion break.
My
real quick.
Gemini says no. My Capricorn is yes, please.
Okay.
So it depends.
Please hold for cocoa butter.
Yeah.
That is cocoa butter. It's shea and cocoa butter.
Yes.
Okay. All right. There you go.
The lotion gods have spoken. Yes, you are seeing lubrication here right
It's
now.
only the best.
Oh yes.
I like the shea cocoa blend personally.
Oh no, man, I was actually gonna get cocoa butter tonight. This is the best Caucasian household ever.
I'm like, sorry, dying here.
Oh, this is good.
There are some people who are going to be watching this that are just going to be like, yeah, put the lotion on the skin.
Puts the lotion on its skin. No!
Well, say it, don't spray it, brother. Dang.
Yeah.
There's some women right now that are like, yeah, get in there.
Lotion fetish. Put it on my face.
Better?
Yes.
Okay, all right, good.
I don't take care of my Earth enough. I'm just in my Gemini head. So my Venus and Taurus hates me. My Moon and Cap hates me. It's like, why? It's like, use me.
Gotta moisturize.
I'm gonna start
Gotta
doing
moisturize,
that.
especially if we're gonna booze it up.
I met a Cancer woman who moisturized me, and
Yeah.
she set me on the path of moisturization, which I love. I meet certain Cancer women.
Moisturization.
Or I just
Brought
meet
to you
certain
by water
Cancers.
sign women.
Yeah, the last shout out to Maru when I used to live in Maru back when she kidnapped me and saved me from where I was at because I was in a bad part of town, and when I used to live with her, she hooked me up with like this moisturizing cream, had my face beaming. I didn't know how my face could look.
Something that women
soft
like to
that.
do. We like to teach you guys how to use like toner and eye cream
I'm
and
so illiterate
masks
to that.
and
It makes me feel like Beauty and like Tarzan. And I appreciate that though, the Aries, you know what I'm saying? I appreciate that though, because
my favorite thing to do
a
is
new
like
world.
exfoliate and put on a mask that like peels, and then like use those little face mask things. What are those things called? There's like it's like a wand, like a derma wand basically. That'll you can. There are some that will like exfoliate and do the micro exfoliant, and then I have one of the ones that like buzzes that has like the electrocurrents in it. I like to use that too. Put on my little headband and put Vaseline all over my face.
I used to wonder like how people's skin are so soft. I'm like, wow, how are you born with that skin? I didn't know that all the
Takes time.
Yeah, now I see why y'all be in there for hours.
A lot of products,
too.
a lot of money.
I started to understand why. Like, damn, like you put this on and that on and that on and that for that, and that for that for that, and layers. Like, wow.
Yeah.
I just feel like I'm learning a new study again.
White cracks. You know what I'm saying? Like white, it does crack. Like we crack. So we have to stay super moisturized. You know?
It's skin, ladies and gentlemen. Damn. I just, if only. 32 years old, I'm learning about skin and stuff.
We should go to the spa.
Word, yeah.
We should go get a facial together.
Yeah, maybe that.
Yeah? Okay. All right.
I had a mani-pedi like a few years ago.
A few years
It
ago.
was a while. But I think it's time for me to go back. I went into the wilderness to get tempted by the devil and find myself.
I feel like men like talk shit about pedicures until they get one, and then they're like, oh. Except I like
true.
watching you guys sit there and squirm when they like buff your feet.
Right. It's true. I mean, they serve you alcohol, so and they pamper you. So I mean, it's different. You changed afterwards. Like, oh, this is different.
Speaking of serving alcohol, We have a very fine donation here. A Macallan double cast 12-year Scotch.
Shout out Mrs.
Whiskey.
Dugan from Hawaii.
So we just want to say thank you
Miss Rowe.
for
Alright.
donating this. We're gonna do the unboxing. I have never had this before. This
Me
is
neither.
a little rich for my blood, but
Yeah, this
we had to
looks-
pull this bad boy out of the case. So thank you for your donation.
3 cups. Oh, snap.
We're gonna be talking to you guys about Scorpio season.
I love that. I've come to appreciate the nuance of how water signs know their liquor or drinks. And being gifted drinks or drinking with water signs and talking about Scorpio and unboxing whiskey, that's very symbolic. What do you think Scorpio would be if Pisces, Cancer, and Scorpio were drinks? What would you say? Would they all be hard
would-
liquor?
I feel like drinks or like liqueurs, like drinks.
Well, first of all, would they all be different? Would there be different types of liqueurs, or would Cancer be a beer and Scorpio be hard liquor, and then Pisces be like?
I could see Cancer being a beer, but I could also see Cancer being like.
So there's
a
like
White
beer versions
Russian.
of the signs, and then there's liquor versions of the signs.
I feel like
and
they'd be
then-
like a creamy liqueur.
Cancer.
They could be a beer too. I could say
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
I feel like
I feel you.
Scorpio would definitely be like a hard liquor.
Like a vodka or like a bourbon.
Probably dark and smoky. So like a dark aged bourbon. I feel like Pisces would definitely be like mezcal. It's gonna take you to another dimension.
Yeah, that too. That's tequila. Okay.
Cheers. You have to sound like Ron Burgundy.
Oh wow.
Oh!
Oh wow.
That tastes like
Distinctive.
something you should like dip a cigar in.
Butterscotch. Yeah.
That's really good.
It's very clear. I was thinking the ice would maybe shift consistency, but even it burns just nicely too. It's a very-
Wow, that is I'm very surprised. I
You
haven't
can
had,
drink it straight.
I haven't
without
had scotch since I was in Scotland and I was super sick. And I totally had COVID. And I was coughing the whole time. I was so sick. And the only thing that can control my cough was boozing up.
it. Scotch. Scotland.
You just put that together?
Oh my god.
You didn't know that?
Just like I didn't know that pork and bologna, or just I didn't know that ham and bologna were pork.
Well, bologna is a lot of things. It's not necessarily just pork. Bologna is
So
poor
sorry.
man's ham. That's
So
what it
it's pork
is.
and stuff. Okay. See, I'm learning.
It's all the parts that people don't want, like a hot dog. You know?
I'm embracing more. I've just lived under a rock my whole life, and so my 30s, I'm getting to learn again.
This is a problem.
It's good.
I
Yeah.
could develop a very expensive habit drinking this.
You can drink this without the ice. It doesn't even need anything on the rocks. This is just beautiful.
It's great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you for real. I can only imagine what the 24 years old
Did you
tastes
say
like.
You say it was $3,300?
Yes.
What's it like to just be like, I'm gonna drop $3,000 on
alcohol.
fucking alcohol?
What like? At first, I used to think that people who drop 10,000 or 20,000 on watches were stupid.
That's an investment.
Well, I didn't know they appreciate.
Yeah,
I
they
thought it was
do.
like a car that depreciates off the
No,
lot, but it actually gets more.
watches, certain watches.
That's a flex. That's what's up.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I like that because that's also another Scorpio concept, the Scorpio Taurus concept as far as like valuation in Taurus.
Capricorn too, Saturn time.
True. Time. Well, for watches, right? But the whole notion of like appreciating and kind of like investments,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Do you believe investments are strictly 8th house Scorpio, or is it a Taurus thing, or is it like all of that?
Speculative stuff is 5th house. So it could be 5th, it could be 8th. I see that
probably all of the above.
I see it more as like 8th house
Yeah, me
because
too.
if you're making money off something that you invest in, you're investing which requires other people.
Yeah.
And also, if that stock does well, you're gonna do well. So to me, that seems very 8th house.
Okay.
Yeah.
And most important question is, I think the Scorpio season is very pivotal for Scorpios in general. I mean, you've watched everyone. I'm not gonna I was gonna instigate and be like, you watched everyone talk shit for 6 months, and now it's your sign. You can be like, yeah, but like, what's that like to that build up from Taurus? I feel like your perspective and awareness is very key. Very pay attention to what Lord Hades says for Scorpio, because
I think the fact that this is like, so we talked about Libra season and how the last couple days of Libra season, you see like the Sun and Venus come together and square Pluto. So that's like setting the stage, right? Because that's the closing 3/4 square since the conjunction happened in January. Like, I feel like Scorpio season just like kicks the fucking door in, because the Sun and Venus ingress the same day on the 23rd. And then on the 24th, we have a solar eclipse in Scorpio. And this is the first Scorpio solar eclipse. We've had a lunar eclipse in the spring, but this is the first solar eclipse of this cycle. So this particular Saros cycle is connected to the same eclipses we had 18 years ago, which was back in like 1995. So in theory, this is the first South Node solar eclipse since the mid-90s.
I want to speak to that really quick. I think that's so, I think an episode or a documentary is very important, because that 82 and 94 generation, the South Node and North Node Taurus, I think is very underestimated. It's very key to what's happening, and I'm so glad you referenced that, because you basically just confirm that everything that's happening now is like a transformation of things that were kind of instilled there, and people in 94 are about to have their Saturn return. So that's an amazing nodal return.
Yeah, I was looking at this cycle, and the cycle goes back to the end of October, I think, of 95. There was like a 0 degree solar eclipse in Scorpio. So this one is 2 degrees, and it's going to be in Scorpio, Sun-Venus conjunction. So, you know, the Sun-Venus conjunction, like I said, it starts, it's kind of building from like the 20th, and then they're both going to ingress together, and that'll be on the 23rd. And then we're going to have the solar eclipse, which is going to be on the 25th. Now, we're going to do a whole video on that, so we won't get too much into it. But the fact that it's like 48 hours into Scorpio season, and it's like, boom, Venus goes into Scorpio, Venus Cazimi with the Sun, and a solar eclipse, and then these planets still have to cross the South Node, is like, it's super fucking intense to have Venus in, you know, a sign that's in fall, and then also to have Mars that is stationing in Gemini, and Pluto just woke up.
That sounds to me like unexpected relationships forming together, or unexpected transformations in existing partnerships, for better or for worse, exciting or bad or whatnot. And I'm really looking forward to that, because that's clearly a culmination build-up. But a question I have for you is, what do you think about Pluto, Jupiter, South Node in Scorpio in 94 versus now South Node Scorpio, Pluto Aqua, Jupiter Taurus, Uranus Taurus? That looks like a completion to me, but I'm sure that's like manifesting something.
I mean, I think the fact that we've got so many outer planets that are kind of hanging around the last several signs, you know, Capricorn and Aquarius and Neptune, is just talking about like end times. You know, we're wrapping stuff up.
No, but it is. That's it. That's it. That's
yeah, and we're gonna see like over the next year, obviously, like Pluto and Saturn are both gonna, you know, ingress into new signs, and then that's really gonna be it. We're gonna have Saturn in Pisces for a while, but I think there's a lot of Mars energy in the beginning of Scorpio season, and I keep looking at that, you know, Sun, Moon, Venus, quincunx, Jupiter. I mean, we talked about it in the solar eclipse video, but just a lot of just like, here we go, you know? And I'm always fascinated by the dynamic between Aries and Scorpio, because I think that where Aries is just kind of like raising hell, you know? I mean, just like being like combative and confrontational.
Or raising canes. Or is that Taurus? Never mind.
Chicken joke. And then you've got like all these planets that are in Scorpio. I mean, it's just, this is like I said, like Scorpio season just like kind of kicks in the door.
Yeah.
You know, and yeah, I don't know.
Well, what do you think about the new moon in Libra opposite Jupiter leading into the new moon quincunx Jupiter? Like, that has to be some kind of effect.
Well, it's bringing up the fact that everything feels amplified, right? So there's an amplification that's going on, and Jupiter in Aries is really dealing with like our own personal belief systems and our own personal freedoms. And I think the inconjunct that's taking place is also kind of really talking about the fact that you can't have personal freedom and also be afraid of living your life.
Yeah.
Like there is a need to
That's so
to
true.
like really kind of like clear shit out, pun intended, in Scorpio season.
And then we get the 29-degree Jupiter trine at the end of Scorpio season, which we'll talk
Yeah,
about. But
and that'll be the last time that we're going to see, you know, both Jupiter and Neptune in the sign of Pisces in our lifetime, so that's not going to happen again.
ever.
Yeah.
That's so deep.
So we talked a little bit about the eclipse. We talked to you guys about that, and I think we even, did we take it through the signs?
Yeah.
We did? Okay, yeah. So then we see when the eclipse is over, obviously the 30th, Mars goes retrograde in Gemini. And that's kind of important. The fact that we have, you know, the sun's in Scorpio. We've got so many planets that are in Scorpio, and that day is an interesting day, which is watching like Venus approach the south node and the moon conjunct Pluto, and it's all going to be bringing up this like really strong like kind of Plutonian energy, and it all is going to in conjunct Mars. Extended Mars square Neptune, lots of like deception and not knowing what direction we're going in, which we've touched on. Jupiter goes back into Pisces. Actually, that's going to be happening, it looks like, on the 28th. Just fucking crazy.
So, yeah,
Saturn is
Sag
stationing,
moon, damn.
and now it's direct. Pluto's now direct. Jupiter went retrograde into Pisces. Mars is like retrograde. Like the end of October is like insane to me.
Especially during Halloween period, and I would love for you to speak on not only is this Jupiter retrograding back, but it's retrograding back as the moon in Sag is about to enact the T-square.
Yeah.
That's insane. Like we're getting ready. So right after the new moon in Scorpio, you're gonna manifest a change of your entire perspective and understand like the higher perspective of how to literally not only manifest this new moon activation post eclipse, but it'd be obviously moon Sag means we'll understand about world events, but I can only imagine how unexpectedly controversial this could be.
That's going to be a really shitty T-square to watch the moon go through Sag and oppose a Mars retrograde and then square Neptune
Lots of
and
misunderstandings
Jupiter.
potentially.
That's definitely some kind of like global stuff that's going on. I mean, the Jupiter-Neptune has room for peace. Peace is possible, but like I don't really feel like with Mars getting ready to retrograde in a square that like peace is likely. I feel like that's more kind of like covert like war games.
Yeah, it looks like a lot of like peace on the surface, but the actions people are taking are not in alignment with what's said.
We've also got like that Mercury square Pluto in the background. And yeah, just like some obsessive thoughts and ideas and kind of like fear mongering, you know, that's like going on. I mean, as much as like I had high hopes for Scorpio season, I mean, this is the first time, right? Last year when
You said it was going to be the Virgo season of this year, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like
That's
last
awesome.
year, we didn't have the true node in Taurus and Scorpio during
No.
Scorpio season. It was in like the late degree. It was in the very
Yeah.
beginning degrees of Gemini and Sag. So even though we had like a lunar eclipse in the fall of 2021 in Taurus, the node hadn't moved yet. So the south node wasn't in Scorpio. So like this south node Scorpio season makes me feel like
Square Saturn too.
it can go one of two ways. Like it can go in a positive sense where you like become aware of your bullshit and you work through it, you deal with it, and you acknowledge like the shadow stuff that's coming up, even though it's like icky. Or I think as planets start to cross the south node, oppose Uranus and square Saturn, we're going to like fall back into some really bad habits, and like we're going to see issues where there's financial kind of entanglements and sex scandals and some like really messy relationship things that can happen, because you know Venus isn't entirely happy being in Scorpio. right? So it's challenging enough having Venus go through that sign, but Venus is very heavily involved in the eclipses. In the solar eclipse it's conjunct, and then in the lunar eclipse it opposes Uranus, and it squares Saturn. So Venus is not well placed, which can be an indication that there's just going to be like a lot of, like blood in the streets, in the markets. Like it's going to be,
Quite literally.
Yeah.
It'd be interesting to see and note the pre-build-up eclipse dynamic with Venus on the nodes versus after it's on the nodes. So that build-up can obviously build up energy, and once it of course passes through, do you believe we may get, I was going to ask if we'll get more clarity or confusion, but it could be both. But yeah, I think maybe a lot of relationship baggage, closure, or insight will be revealed in most unconventional fashion. And I think everyone in their own unique way will come to accept facets of their relationships or potential in partnerships that they wouldn't have seen coming. And I think energy like this is love at first sight energy, or just like faded energy that people who normally wouldn't do something together do something together because it brought it together. But that Saturn square that kind of binds both of them is what makes me think you have that relationship, but then Saturn is like a collective mandate or something in the mainstream that influences how two partners like make a decision or move forward or brings them closer together. So yeah.
I mean, I feel like Scorpio season is like a clearing, I mean, usually it's like it gives room for like rebirth and we see endings and beginnings, but this particular season with the conjunctions to the South Node, there is this loss and release and letting go, which is, I think with the trines to Jupiter and Neptune, it's not exactly spiritual, it's sad. To me, it seems like there's like sorrow and there's grief that's going on because these are emotional like water signs. And then we're going to see the squares to Saturn, which is going to represent hang-ups, delays, challenges. And Scorpio does represent debts and loans and anything in regards to borrowing. So it's going to make it more challenging to be able to, overcome that. I mean, I'm interested to see what happens. Like I just saw in the news earlier today, they were saying like over the next month, they're going to roll out this whole thing for like student loan debt forgiveness. That they're doing within a month, which is interesting. So it's like just prior to midterm elections, they want to like give everybody a pass on like, like any marijuana charges, if you have like minor marijuana charges, and now they're like willing to, forgive up to $20,000 in like student loan debt. These are very like Scorpio
you
things.
My loans, Joe Biden, I might like you a little bit. We'll see.
I just think it's bullshit that they could have done that all along, and they don't.
And they don't until
right?
it's time for
And then
election.
there's like a fuckload of money that's like going to like Ukraine and like other things.
Right.
Just recently I saw a thing that I was like saying that like there's like so many tens of thousands of dollars of taxpayers' money that's going towards providing immigrants from the borders, I guess not technically immigrants, but people who have come here illegally, to provide them also with like cell phones. And I'm not going to get into like whether I'm for or against it, but I was like, isn't that interesting? Like, I don't think a lot of people really know where our taxes are going. I think we complain about it when we're hitting like a pothole in the street, or we're complaining about it when, we're not totally thrilled with like the state of public parks, or, what's going on with like funding in regards to like schools and education and stuff. But I mean, I think the South Node transits are going to kind of dig up more of this like, hey, do you know this is where your money is going towards? And get people really kind of like thinking about like, well, why is it going towards that? Who okayed this, right? Similar to like, it was like a year or two ago when all that stuff came out in regards to like how many thousands of dollars they were spending on like shrimp and lobster at like the Pentagon or something.
No, I didn't hear
Yeah,
that.
it was like one of the federal branches. I don't know what it was, but I remember just being like, this is fucking crazy. Like $50,000 towards like seafood for like federal, agents and people to like be able to like eat. Like there's a budget for
Which
that.
I'm sure out of billions you might not think is a lot, but it's important to allocate these
And
little things.
the billions of dollars that go missing every year.
Every year.
Right, that just goes missing. We don't know where it went.
Crazy.
Right.
Just accounting errors, I guess.
Yeah.
But I love everything you're king here, because I feel with the South Node, the last time the North Node was there was 10 years ago. So it's like it's almost as if we're gaining 10 years worth of exposed wisdom of the long-term effects of everything that's happened since 2012 and then again 2020.
It's interesting to look at it that way. I mean, and I'm sure people who have like a North Node in, in Taurus or Scorpio, like seeing kind of like the differences. But
Or Aquarius or Leo.
Yeah. Just kind of like looking at that. Like I remember, because when the North Node was going through Scorpio, I think it was also with Saturn, if I remember correctly, for one of the periods.
Yeah, 82, 83, 84.
Yeah.
The Leo King has that.
Yeah. So it's like while that was happening, it could be a very different kind of transit for some of you guys because you're having transits that are kind of releasing or unlocking Saturn. I don't know. It's weird times. I think that as planets start to kind of come into contact at the South Node, I'm curious to see how this materializes, because we're going to have a gang of planets, and I think that's going to start really getting activated around the November 1st period, just with that ingress of like the moon going into Aquarius. It's going to conjunct Saturn. We're going to see all of that square all the Scorpio planets, and then we're going to see Venus touch on the South Node around the 3rd. What do you make of that?
So yeah, I feel like once Venus crosses over the nodes, that's gonna really unlock and plug us into anything that we're not fully clear on. Mainly too because Mercury's ingress through that square into Scorpio while we're in Scorpio season and being aware of the results of all the actions we took with others, now our brains are starting to break through how we communicate this with people. So I think by then we're more clear than ever about what cuts, sacrifices, transformations, moves we have to make. I think people won't be fully clear or sure on it, but they'll still be willing to move in that right direction. And we know that the moon will be in Pisces, so it's going to be one of the most intuitive days that will kind of highlight and key people into signs, synchronicities. But I like how you drew that theme of, instead of it being spiritual, it's going to be more sad. So it'll definitely kind of prepare to integrate for the full moon. And I would be really... See, the reason why it's kind of hard to speak on is, as we're recording this, things are so volatile. World War III could be broken out by this period if it doesn't start at the end of Libra season. So it really depend on a lot of what happens. Like the next 6 months from now, literally anything can happen.
Especially because Putin's chart is just like lit up like a Christmas tree.
And Biden's.
Yeah, with the eclipses. Well, I mean, more Putin's with the eclipses. But yeah, we're going to see more of that. And, the U.S. chart, they're in their Neptune opposed Neptune. And we're seeing our Mars return taking place, one of several Mars returns, which will square our natal Neptune and also transit Neptune. So,
holy shit.
Yeah, I mean, I think that...
that Mars return is huge. Mars and Pluto return, damn.
I've thought for some time, and I think a lot of other people share the same opinion, that, the United States are kind of responsible for fueling a lot of conflict in the world. Mm-hmm. And so it's going to be interesting to see what happens as Mars retrogrades in our chart, squaring natal Neptune and transit Neptune, where we may have people who were, basically backing us and people who we considered to be allies that are no longer allies as a result of like some of the shit that we're kind of stirring in other countries because it's profitable for the United States, or it's going to be able to kind of be, a distraction and like smoke and mirrors for other things that are going on. It's just... Yeah, I don't know what's going to happen.
So one thing that's really key about you saying that gives me the impression that from now until this period, and I can see it coming out Scorpio season and in Sagittarius season, light is brought to this, but we very well may be exposed to what the FBI or CIA may have done, or certain American personnel may have done in other countries that spark outrage and really manifest what you just said. And this could bring more insight to why Russia invaded Ukraine, especially if those labs that were there do have credence. And, you know, it kind of ties China, America, or just America into being revealed to being involved in something like that. Or it could be just unlikely alliances that piss off other alliances. But
I mean, the South Node, Venus, especially with the trine to the moon, right? Because these are happening in water signs, which represent kind of endings.
Okay.
I very much think that this is probably going to be a very significant public death of a woman. Or like somebody who's losing power, losing popularity, falling out, you know, in terms of like society and not having support. Because, you know, the dispositor of Venus is Mars, and Mars is, you know, turning retrograde. So we might feel like there can be certain women who have been involved in like scandal or things that we haven't heard from in a while that suddenly kind of pop back up in the media. And then with the trine from the moon, I actually really think that there is going to be, like a very significant public loss of a woman.
We think something will happen to Biden, but what if something happened to Kamala? I don't believe that will happen. But
well, one of the eclipses is heavily aspecting her moon.
Her Aries moon, yeah.
Oh,
yeah, close enough. Okay.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
So it's close.
And Pluto squaring it too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a fun transit.
Yeah, and then that's also squaring the composite North Node Uranus Lucifer that Biden and Kamala have. So that's just, I don't know. It'd be really interesting to see post-midterm elections how she plays her hand.
Well, and then also, you know, like after that South Node Venus conjunction, which I think is significant.
I hate to interrupt you, but I didn't even realize Mars is on her rising.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah.
That's super crazy, yeah. Do you think that's behind the whole marijuana, like, releasing stuff, or that's just kind of activating?
Mars, what do you know what degree her ascendant is?
24. North Node AC 24.
And what other, where, I would have to look at her chart, but.
Moon is 29, Sun is 25. Moon is like 28, Sun is 25-ish.
Well, then the Mars retrograde is going to have something specifically to do with her going back on something she said or something that she's like communicated.
Okay. That's so true. Yeah.
Yeah.
It could be what she just said too. So maybe she'll go back on it after or something like that. But yeah, we definitely want to watch Kamala. We definitely want to watch Joe, the sun and moon. The eclipse is on his sun and moon, and then like she said, I think the star player is Putin.
Yeah, for sure. Just knowing like some of his oppositions and his squares and everything's coming to his ascendant. After the Venus South Node conjunction, then we have the Sun coming into the conjunction too. So for Venus and the Sun to conjunct, really significant things happening, like all the way up until midterm elections on the 8th, which will also be a lunar eclipse in Taurus. So I'm wondering, like, what scandal breaks out?
Yeah,
like, do we find something out about a sex scandal? Is it something in relation to, you know, taxes and money?
Allegations.
Yeah.
What do you feel? It could be also there's this theme of unlikely alliances here, that Saturn squaring the nodes puts you with someone by fate, by karma, right? By a series of actions. The thing that really blows my mind here, or would be interesting to gain maybe some more insight on.
I think also the fact that these planets in Scorpio that are rising, right? Yeah. They're coming into a superior position as they're coming into a square with Saturn. So when planets are, you know, in Taurus, like they're in, you know, an inferior position because Saturn is at a higher degree. And then when you're in the opposition, it's kind of like everything goes. But as planets are moving into Scorpio and they're rising, coming into the square.
10th house rising, you mean?
Yeah. Oh, so, you know, Venus and the Sun and Mercury are all superior to Saturn.
Okay.
Even though Saturn's direct. I still think that that's giving more precedent to some of these conjunctions.
To trigger a social change, for sure. Transformation.
I think we're going to hear more about abortion and things in regards to women's rights, just with the South Node and the Sun coming into conjunction with, you know, each other. And Venus, I think we're going to hear more about people probably, lecturing or politicking or running on whatever. This is what I'm going to do to cut taxes. This is what I'm going to do for reproductive rights and all that stuff.
A lot of the Supreme Court turning over was open-ended. So it would make sense that we continue that open-ended conversation during then too. And they're like, okay, remember we were talking about, contraceptives were in question and gay marriage. So I think we might see a further continuum of this conflict there.
Well, especially because we have to consider the North Node and Uranus both have strong connections to Venus. So to see Venus go through its fall, conjunct the South Node with the Sun, it's a loss of power,
right.
A loss for femininity, a loss for people to be able to also be able to dip into their investments or their insurance or their IRAs or anything in regards to savings.
Yeah.
So
a loss for femininity gives me the impression too that on top of more rights being threatened or taken away, we're seeing a more rise in transgenderism. In that it gives...
I didn't understand that.
I was saying in that it gives trans women more rights over women. That's what I was going to ask too. Okay, what do you think on top of that, what do you think this has to do with a potential draft? Do you, because I know that like there was a popular Russian artist who killed himself because
I saw that he didn't want to participate in the Russian draft.
Right. And then there was an article about Biden saying that for the draft, trans women, because they were born men, have to register in the draft. So first of all, what for the...
I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think if you identify as a man and if you want to say that you identify as a man, then why would you be treated differently than a man?
No, that part, and plus I think
they participate in the Olympics.
But I think trans women before were complaining that they weren't inclusive in military. So I kind of see that as like a win for them.
Yeah, but then you also have had women who were born women and identify as women who have wanted to serve. And
they said they don't have to register,
and they can't.
And they can't. Okay, so
I feel like you can't have it both ways. If
Right.
you want to participate in the Olympics, if you want to pee standing up in a public bathroom, then you should also register for the draft. It's just
that
it is what it is.
No, it is what it is. If there's any, because like, but on top of that too, like, do you feel like a draft like that? Because I never expected.
I think it's fucking hilarious if they're gonna try to have a draft because
is there gonna be a draft? Is my question.
A Mars retrograde could be them telling people that they're basically going to be going through the draft lists and they're going to be looking at, who is of age and who's capable of going. Like, I wouldn't put it past it with some of these transits to possibly get everything ready. But let's be honest here. Most kids that are 18 to 24 years of age are obese or overweight.
Gen Z and millennials.
All they do is want to vape.
Or Gen
hang
Z,
out,
basically.
Watch video games. Like, a lot of them are angry liberals. A lot of them. And it's not their fault. It's just, just as a result of just
being lied to
the culture
and
they've
everything.
grown up in and just, like, media and stuff.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like I look at this and I'm like, you're going to draft younger people. But, like, and we've talked about this on previous podcasts. It's just, like, I think maybe that's why our generation and even a little bit older are so incredibly privileged. Mm-hmm. Like, they didn't have to go to war. Like, they haven't
Vietnam
had to,
War, Korean War, World War II, World War I. We had the Iraq War, but we didn't have to go to war. The Gen Z didn't have to go to war.
Yeah.
So that's very true. Very interesting.
Some people who were, I guess, towards the latter part of the Iraq War.
They were still stationed.
Some people were going. I know some people who are, like, anywhere between, like, 3 and 5 years older than me that did go. But...
But it wasn't like a war.
I think with, like, Mars square Neptune...
Actually, I take that back.
Even with a trine to Saturn, they may prepare people and freak people out, making them think they have to go to war. And if, like, that's going to happen, what are you going to do? You're going to have a bunch of people burning their draft cards like they did in
Vietnam. That's what I was going to ask
Literally,
you too.
Mars square Neptune is like, fuck war, I'm going to burn my draft card.
Right. So, yeah, you answered the question. And this is meme culture. So, like, just can't see people taking it.
I would be surprised to see if that happens just in my lifetime. Obviously, I don't hope that's the case because I wouldn't want there to be a war, but I also am kind of like, well, who's going to fight this war when we have
who's going to fight this war?
Yeah.
Exactly. And then on top of that, you have, because there are people who will tell you that, like, oh, drafts aren't. They'll take this more machismo approach, which I'll kind of defend that approach in a sense where you have people who are willing to be drafted. You have people who get what it means and they want to fight for their country. But the people who would be willing to fight that war, would they want to fight this war?
But there's also thousands of people who are on, what is it? Like they're basically standby service. They're just
Okay, armed reserve.
Yeah, who are like reserves.
Okay.
Like there's a lot of people who are in the reserves, and like there hasn't really been shit that's happened in like an extended period of time. I'm not saying that if there wasn't a war they would need people, but like I started thinking about this and I'm like, dude, I'm watching videos of like Russia straight up launch missiles into parts of Ukraine that's like hitting like full-blown cities where there's just people who are walking on the streets. So I feel like if this became like a war, just because now we're in modern times and so much more of our world is now like occupied, like do we want a war? Because it's going to be brought to the States. The United States have not had war physically fought on our land unless you take into consideration we had, some people will say 9/11 was an attack on the United States. I look at Pearl Harbor because that was an attack on the United States.
That's a while ago.
Yeah, but that was in the 40s, and that's also right around the time that we saw like all like the wartime propaganda and like other things that were going on. That's going on now with Mars square Neptune. So, and I was actually looking at the Cuban Missile Crisis. We had Saturn in Aquarius. We had a very loose, wide Mars Neptune square.
No, it was 60s.
Yeah.
62.
Yeah, so it's, I mean, there's some similar astrology, like never say never, but personally, do I think this is going to erupt into a nuclear war? I don't. Okay. Because I think that people aren't stupid and they know that like countries will retaliate and they'll just burn them to a crisp, but mostly the wind's going to blow somewhere. So, it's kind of, there's so much fear porn out there. You're seeing stuff in Europe where they're like checking bomb shelters to make sure they're usable. We hear that the U.S. just recently bought millions of dollars worth of radiation medication. Like,
didn't this happen in Europe shortly before too? Like, okay, so that's interesting. I'm really interested about the dynamic of people who will gladly draft themselves to war. Because you brought up a very important dynamic of people who aren't fit for war. But then you have the people who are fit for war and in the reserves, and I can see a lot of them being like, we don't want to fight this war.
I don't think anybody wants to collectively. When we start to look at, Mars being the ruler of the South Node and it's going to retrograde, it's what are we giving up? The need to basically like drive this agenda in the media to the point where everybody's getting hyped up and then somebody's going to flip out and they're going to do something. We've got, Korea fucking launching stuff into the ocean off the coast of Japan. Like, we've got way too many people that are trigger happy. And I also, just in the back of my mind, keep looking at now that Pluto's just going to keep moving forward to the late degrees of Capricorn until it goes into Aquarius. Like, this is the war games that all of these individuals play, knowing that the jig is up and like we're about to see the end over the next few years of certain countries wielding some kind of like power because there is a breakdown that's going on because there's an incentive to move towards a one world government.
So true, yes. That's it.
So like, of course you're going to see all these fucking assholes that are just shooting stuff off and acting like,
What I'm afraid of, or what I'm worried about, is we can easily see an action by a country be taken as an act of war when it wasn't. And by the time people realize it was a misunderstanding, we're at war. And people might lie about it too.
Super Mars square Neptune too.
Super Mars, right.
Yeah.
Or someone might kill someone on accident and boom, now like the countries are beefing. Like, I don't know. So that'll be interesting.
So, and also you have to take into consideration when planets conjunct the South Node, they're opposing the North Node.
Yeah.
So there is some sense of like playing out karma, like repeating patterns, like things that hinder us from being able to go into the future. So if there's stuff that's got to go, that's got to get cut or like released, that's what's going to happen. Venus opposes Uranus then on the 6th. So that's interesting. Definitely makeups and breakups and shakeups in the market, and I'm not a fan of that.
I feel like if there were breakups, there's a chance they can come back together by the Taurus eclipse, if not before.
Well, a lot of the breakups are happening at the tail end of Libra season too. Just watching like Sun and Venus, and also Mercury all coming into a square with Pluto. So there's definitely a lot of like, okay, something's not working.
Yeah.
And then the Venus square Saturn, which also at an 18, oppose Uranus coming into the lunar eclipse in Taurus. So that's also going to be a bit of a rocky time. I mean, to me, this just screams like finances. You know, we're filming this like in the first half of October right now, so we don't even know what's going to happen with the eclipses. But that Venus square Saturn in 18, that's also squaring that activated Mars North Node Uranus conjunction we had in July, makes me feel like that's a really rocky time for markets, you know, and also 18 is Virgo, so it's like hospitality, the service industry, food, anything in regards to...
You have 2 stock quotes capsules.
Damn, that's
Do you want
twice
to
in a
use
row.
CNBC or Scorpio?
Oh my god.
Anything in regards to like Virgo stuff. Then we have the Sun coming into an opposition with Uranus. And then we have the lunar eclipse in Taurus. That'll be the next video we're going to put out. But
Okay. I feel like by the time we get here, all hell breaks loose.
Yeah.
So everything is literally a build up to here and then boom. You heard it first.
I mean, I've thought for some time that this is going to be the breakdown of the housing market.
Ooh.
Only because you have so many 16s that are setting up. Uranus, the moon, the sun, you know, Venus coming out of the square with Uranus. I'm wondering, like, what's the crazy fucking thing that's going to happen with the election? Even though it's midterms, you know, the moon does deal with, like, the collective. So watching the moon come into conjunction with Uranus, square Saturn, and oppose the sun doesn't make me feel like either party is going to be entirely thrilled by what's going on. And I'm wondering, like, is there some, like, crazy world event or something that's happening that's, like, hindering people from going out and, like, voting in person?
All right.
You know?
Yeah.
Or the fact that the sun's about to cazimi with Mercury, is there some kind of malfunction with voting machines or...
For any conspiracy theorists or people who like to, you know, look beyond what's occurring, you might be delighted to be confirmed. We are in PSYOP territory. We haven't had a major PSYOP in a while, so prepare yourselves. I think if a PSYOP happened, it's Scorpio season for sure. And a Libra season, Scorpio season, so.
I mean, I'm kind of excited that when the eclipse happens, Venus
Or
is on
false
my
flags.
sun, so I do feel,
Yeah.
I feel safer. I feel safer. I don't feel
Right.
safe, but I feel safer. You know, this one's gonna be a doozy. It's gonna oppose my Pluto.
That Saturn square is really the thing. It's like,
Yeah.
that'd be interesting.
Yeah, I don't know. I think with Mercury and the Sun and Venus, there's going to be lots of talk about like what's going on in the markets, unfortunately, and the fact that Mars is retrograde. I mean, the last time that we saw Mars briefly retrograding in Gemini, it started in Cancer and it went retrograde into Gemini, was the beginning of 2008 when we had the housing market crash.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And that was when Pluto just entered Capricorn. So now it's about to leave. That'll probably
Yeah.
bring it to literally the next level. So
I don't know. I think that the oppositions to Uranus is going to say a lot. So the fact that we're having the Sun oppose Uranus on an eclipse is kind of saying like it's like a topsy-turvy, anything kind of goes. Venus comes out of the opposition with the moon, so things are going to feel out of reach. Then we have the Sun-Mercury cazimi on the 9th, where some kind of information comes to light, really unexpectedly. And then we have the Sun and Mercury come into a square with Saturn. From that point on, I guess the one thing that we do have working is like Venus is going to start trining Neptune and Jupiter. Mercury is going to start trining Neptune and Jupiter. We've got sextiles that are happening to Pluto. This is why I say it's sad. Like, this to me seems like mourning, like, oh my God, this ended, we have to let it go. Like, Jupiter and Neptune isn't all like rainbow and butterflies in Pisces. It's kind of like morose in a way.
like an Eeyore?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
You know, and it to me it seems like kind of like mourning something as it trines planets in Scorpio.
So you said a major political figure, but it could be a major celebrity figure too.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that Venus and the Sun are going to cross the South Node, I mean, it could be a man and a woman. It could be an artist.
Correct me if I'm wrong, by the way. The last time we had this eclipse energy, Travis Scott's Astroworld tragedy happened. So I have every reason to believe that, yeah, there's going to be a deeper level of mourning.
And the South Node wasn't even in Scorpio yet.
Yeah, it wasn't. Right, yeah.
So that's what people don't understand, because this is the first time and the only time, because come next year, the South Node will be moving into Libra. This is the only one that we're going to experience where there's physical contact with the South Node.
Seriously.
So I think that as these planets all come into conjunction, they square Saturn, so we experience loss or delays. They all trine Neptune and Jupiter. They start sextiling Pluto. It's like, yes, things may get better, but all of these energies are also going to in conjunct, and they're going to quincunx Mars. So to have planets in a sign that's ruled by Mars, all in conjunct Mars, that also makes me feel like there's going to be a little bit of back and forth with the, how did this fall apart? How did these people die? How did this malfunction? Like, yeah. Because Scorpio is 6th house to Gemini.
Yeah.
You know?
That's true.
So.
And I feel like with that quincunx with Gemini, whereas if we didn't have the Mars, for example, the last time we had this, Mars wasn't in Gemini. So we weren't necessarily able to act at all off of what we think is happening. And people will. Some people won't know what the fuck they're doing at all, but some people will. And it's going to expose things that everything that at the end of Scorpio season is exposed, Sagittarius season will capitalize on. And that's going to mark, with Jupiter getting ready to go into Capricorn, the hyper acceleration of the end of the world, and things moving so fast, because this is post midterms elections and everyone can stop acting like they care, and we can see what people's real agenda are. So
yeah, we can see what they're actually really going to do or not do.
Yeah. I really do believe we're going to see some kind of false flag, psyop, or even if it's genuine, crazy event that will morally... And that makes sense with the Saturn square, because it's like, you know, now people are calling for gun control, and you have people in relationships saying, hey, I think they should regulate guns. I think they shouldn't. I think they should have this mandate. I think they shouldn't. So, yeah. And it's probably going to be tied to some celebrity or political death.
And don't forget that as planets cross 26 or 27 degrees of Scorpio, they are reactivating the eclipses that we have had. 2021, in the fall, we had a 26-degree Taurus lunar eclipse. 2022, we had a 26-degree Scorpio lunar eclipse. So planets are activating that, even with the opposition.
You mean 16 or 26?
No, 20,
16, yeah.
26 and 27, and also 10. So when the sun was at 10 degrees too, it'll do that. So like as Venus hits that eclipse degree around the 13th, Mercury's going to hit it around the 15th, Sun's going to hit this around the 18th, and all of those planets will reactivate that, and they will in conjunct Mars.
We also want to account for the Mercury cazimi to the Sun before it goes into the cazimi and Sag. So much exposure, so much clarity, and it will shock you. And it's wild because we're already going to be shocked leading up to there.
I'm born with that cazimi. 18 degree Sun, 19 degree Mercury. I have that same cazimi.
Wow.
So actually, yeah, that it's happening on the 10th. That's going to be a day to watch.
Yeah.
Square Saturn, fuck. Oh boy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It makes me think a lot more, once again, the phenomenon of social distancing happened when we didn't have any major planets in the social signs. So now that we're clearing the social again, we're not going to have any social activity at all. We are legitimately in a period of darkness because Jupiter will be...
Sorry.
You're straight. Jupiter won't be... After Sagittarius season, Jupiter will be in Aries for 5 months, and we will have no light for a long while.
Here's one other thing I just noticed that I didn't see until just now, but in the mid-November period, as like the Sun, Mercury, and Venus are all between 20 and 25 degrees, that's all sextiling Pluto, and it's creating like an apex point, like a yod to Mars. So the fact that these two energies are syncing up between Scorpio and Taurus, and it's putting this focal point on Mars, So very important to be watching the Mars retrograde.
Yes.
Like, I think about when the North Node went through Gemini, because I have four planets in Scorpio and 4 in Capricorn. And as the North Node went through Gemini, and like when I had like a Mercury retrograde in Gemini this last year, so many things just like clicked for me in wherever the Gemini area of my life was. So I'm really interested to see how the Mars retrograde is like saying like that's a bigger piece of the picture. I think we can't underestimate that transit.
That's the kinks I have too with Saturn, Pluto, and the Sun, which is crazy. So I'm probably gonna be saying all sorts of saucy, crazy shit. I can't wait.
And basically we just have to, once we start seeing these planets sextiling Pluto, it's going to kind of ease up, and it's all trining Neptune and Jupiter. And then finally, Venus moves into Sag on the 16th, Mercury moves in on the 17th, and then the Sun will move into Sagittarius by the 22nd.
Boom.
And then we will start Sagittarius season with the new moon. So it's interesting to see both Scorpio and Sag season immediately start
with the new moon. Yes, we're just kicking the door down.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, fresh energy.
And Jupiter will go direct during the Sag season, so we'll gain hyper clarity, confusion amidst clarity.
Yeah.
But that opposition with Sag Sun, opposite Mars and Gemini, I'm going to make the prediction World War III will have started by then, if not the Pluto conjunction.
Even with the opposition to Mars retrograde square Neptune?
Yeah.
Okay.
In Sagittarius, I think that if World War III doesn't start, the skirmishes that lead up to World War III will have already started by then, if not Scorpio season. So get ready, my friends. And Scorpio season will prepare you for sure. It's going to connect you. It's going to transform your social environment and connect you, square Saturn, with unlikely alliances. Like, I feel like this is the type of, if you've seen Bad Omens, where like an angel and demon who don't talk together are talking together because it's the end of the world and they have to find the Antichrist and facilitate it. It's like you're connecting with ops. You're connecting with people you never connect with, and you just got to settle your differences and like move forward.
It's also the squares to Saturn too, though.
It is. It's 100% the squares to Saturn. So it's just like, I think the Saturn squares was making people come together that wouldn't normally come together. All the people who were beefing 2020 might come together this year and be like, yeah, they lied to both of us. And like, let's squash our shit and let's, break through the Sun-Pluto conjunction, the last time that we'll have for 256 years. Like, it's happening, y'all. And this Scorpio season.
Yeah, we're going to have to see what happens. I'm just kind of like,
And if you have Sun in Scorpio, Moon in Scorpio, Rising in Scorpio, any planets in Scorpio, like, you're being lit up.
Taurus too, though. Any of the fixed signs, right? So especially if you think of like the solar eclipse being around 2 degrees, so I'd say 0 to 4 of the fixed signs, especially Scorpio and Taurus, and the lunar eclipse being at 16 degrees. So if you have anything from 14 to 18 degrees of the fixed sign, especially Scorpio and Taurus, you're going to feel this.
Mm-hmm.
But let us know, where is it taking place in your chart? What are you anticipating for a Scorpio season? Is it your birthday? If so, happy birthday. We hope it's a good one in the midst of the eclipses for you. And if you're going through a crisis, do consider joining Level 3 so you can support us, so we can drink on the internet and talk to you guys about the astrology.
Yay.
And also, if you guys want to join our memberships, Level 3 does include a reading during one of our live sessions that we do every other Wednesday. When we do the Midheaven Podcast Live, you can usually catch us here in the Wednesday evenings. Twice a month. So please consider subscribing and join us for one of those sessions.
And rest in peace, Angela, the legendary actress, and Willie Spencer, the late talented singer. And Brandy, we hope you get well as we were recording this. I normally don't even call stuff out like that, but I just felt the need to say that. And you guys stay tuned as always. We appreciate your support. Season 2 of this amazing podcast. We're about to be super famous, so we won't act right.
To the Saturn square.
We gonna remember you. Don't worry. Once Pluto hits Aquarius and hits our North Nodes over next, we won't act brand new. We will remember all of you. So thanks for the support. It is what it is.
Thank you guys for watching. We'll see you soon. Take care.